This is a review of my game, episodes 12 to 17. If you haven't watched the Duskmourn Chronicles, fear not, I shall catch you up straight away. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of How to Be a Great GM. My name is Guy, and you've asked for me to review what has been happening, what's been going on, what I've been planning, what I've been hoping for, what has actually been transpiring in my live play, The Duskmourn Chronicles, which you can catch on this channel every Friday afternoon, morning or evening, depending on where you are in the world. It drops on Fridays. The players have come together, and the grand story is that someone is trying to annihilate the King of Brunei and his entire family. The player characters got embroiled in saving the young princeling from this attack. They smuggled the prince out of the castle under the very nose of the assassins, whom they suspect may be controlled by an individual by the name of Lord Pham, the steward of the castle of Howden Lee, the mastermind behind the assassination of the king and the queen. So he's obviously looking for them. Our heroes, through hook and crook, managed to escape to the elvish city of Quethlin in the hopes of convincing the elves that they may or may not be able to provide some assistance. Unfortunately for them, one of the player characters sent the game in a completely different direction to where anyone was anticipating it going by accidentally triggering something that I had seeded for future games. They just activated it straight away and were suddenly transported into the Shadow Realm. I never plan. I know that I have my villains running around, and I happened to have launched my first villain, Lord Pham. Lord Pham has these brain-killing monsters that roam around and do his bidding. The players got to Quethlin, and I didn't want Quethlin to be quiet, so I introduced a second evil lord, Lord Dis. And what this has actually done is it's inspired me to realize that my entire campaign plan, which I outlined in a previous video, that there is this dark evil that is trying to take over the prime material plane. And I've now linked that dark evil to a story that the characters have created. They created this artifact, the Crepuscularium, which is a book which basically says that gods are self-made, they're not omnipresent, not omnipotent, they are not all-powerful, they're just beings like everybody else and can be killed or destroyed like everybody else. I've started to introduce the villain, Lord Pham, but the players ran away from him very, very quickly. It's not a problem. I realized when they ran to Quethlin that I could introduce another villain. What if this plan was global? Each of the major empires has been infiltrated in some way by the Shadow Lords. But how would they do it? This is something that I had to come up with on the fly whilst the characters were on their way to Quethlin. Well, Lord Dis, who is in charge of the Elvish territories, in charge of overtaking the Elvish territories, is not going to be acting as quickly as Lord Pham, who's human. Lord Dis, who's Elvish, is going to have a longer time frame. Again, this is nothing that I was making up. This is merely stuff that I'm looking at from my world-building perspective going, well, this is how they'd operate. So I don't have a plan, and I didn't have a plan for Lord Dis and what he was going to do. All I know is that the players handed over the princeling to Lord Dis, who discovered that the princeling was wearing an amulet of protection from scrying, which meant that Lord Pham couldn't find him. That was what was going through my head, that the player characters would be embroiled in that when they arrived at Quethlin. Well, with the player grabbing the sphere, which is a teleportation device, pulling him into the Shadow Realm, that kind of knocked everything out of the window. I had to realize what was going on in the Shadow Realm. The Shadow Realm, I wanted it to be dark, I wanted it to be miserable, I wanted it to be difficult, and it was. They struggled to get through, and there was some near deaths, there was wonder, there was amazement, there was terror, and I added in the elements of these creatures that were resisting the Shadow Lord. Although the players screwed up the relationship by not really reading in between the lines and so ended up basically being handed over to the Shadow Lords. However, I believe that I have seeded that there is a rebellion in the Shadow Plane fighting against the Shadow Lords. Because something that I'm aware of is that my players feel very much alone. I don't want them to feel that. So now that they've got back, Lord Dis was quite easily outmaneuvered and they stole the kid. The challenge is that we've got our Professor Gottfried, who is hunting down the Crepuscularium book because he has a guilty conscience and he has all kinds of things going on. He was desperate to get this book and had, by just good role-playing and some clever thinking, managed to get an audience into the sacred library of the elves. Of course, now the players had to run. So they started to flee again. Where are they going? I have no idea where their intended direction is, so I needed to make things happen. I had introduced the crows very early on in the session. I didn't know what they were for. I knew that there needed to be crows there because the players were hiding, and the crows needed to act as a threat. Something that says, hey, you are being watched. But then I realized the crows could do something more. Now that my players are out on the ocean, what am I going to do? The elves can't follow them. There's this giant freaky storm that rolled up, courtesy of the dice roll saying giant freaky storm. Where are they going to go? What they're going to do? Once again, I'm at the mercy of the players in terms of them deciding where to go. Some of them are rooting to go back to Quedlin. Some of them are rooting to go elsewhere. I mean, it's wonderful, it's amazing, it's cool. But what about these crows? You see, my mind is constantly looking at what I have given the players before and trying to figure out how I can now incorporate that into what they're doing at this current moment in time. So, what are they doing? They were on a ship. There were these crows. They've heard rumors of vampires being involved. Let's build that connection. And as I said before, I didn't want the player characters to feel like it was them against the Shadow Plane and the Shadow Plane was everywhere and how are they going to do this on their own. So I decided to introduce the vampire, Captain Charles. Captain Charles Terran, as a matter of fact. Her real identity, well, I strongly suspect it'll be more useful later on. So I have kept that kind of hidden from them. But she offers to take the child from them, get rid of this burden that seems to keep on screwing up their plan. They refuse. That's their prerogative. That's fine. There's a little bit of a miscommunication going on. That's neither here nor there. My goal was to inject this vampire captain into the situation so that the players knew and know that she exists, and when the players extended an olive branch, I then said, okay, here we go. Here is something that will help you potentially in the future if you use it right. All of this is just building to provide support for the characters. Now that I know where they're going, well, what are we going to do there? What can I do there? Well, I've set a precedent. Lord Dis, Lord Fam, well, we now need a new lord to be running around trying to cause chaos in the Dwarvish territories. And let me tell you, the Dwarvish territories offer me something that I really need to reconcile. The centaur issue. If you watch episode 1 and 2, Lord Dis, Lord Fam, they're all undead centaur creatures. But I've established that they're not in the prime material and in this present time frame. So what can I do with that? Something that's already crossed my mind is my players are going into the Dwarvish territories. My world setting says that there are centaurs roaming around, running amok. Well, not really amok, just running. I could use this somehow to set up a situation. Again, I don't know what. I don't need to know what yet. I'm sure it will come to me in the middle of the game. So I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. But something will come up that will allow me to say, the centaurs have got some kind of conversion magic which converts normal creatures into these terrifying centaur beasts. And so that's why in the future, Lord Dis and Lord Fam are centaurs. I haven't sprung that yet, because they haven't got there and because, well, we'll see. They might get to the Dwarvish territories, make 1 or 2 decisions and then head back to Quedlin. I've already had one of the players reaching out to me going, hey, I've got this plan on how we can solve this whole thing. Toot sweet, no problem. Great, let's see what that is. And if they don't discover the centaur stuff happening in the Dwarvish territories, I've got it in my back pocket and it'll happen at some point in the future if they go there. I think so far the game is on track. I will share this with you, however. I am a little bit worried that we are taking so much time with this introductory adventure. If you look at the grand scheme of things, if I was planning this out as a campaign with an indefinite end, well, I wouldn't be, because I like definite ends, but if I was planning it out with a definite end, I'd say that we need to get to the end of the introduction. I need my players to now know what it is that they are doing and what it is that they kind of need to do in order to move forward. We're not there yet. We've taken so many hours, 17 hours of gameplay to get to this point. I really need to start bringing it together. I need to start closing it up. Because otherwise you go, well, this adventure feels like the bulk of the campaign. It shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. As far as everything that I've ever spoken about on this channel, this should be a fifth of it, if that. But we're in the 1-to-1 here, folks. The one is dragging on. If the one is 20 or 30 episodes, the second piece has got to be 60 episodes. I mean, that's great. But I am cognizant of this fact. It's not going to force me to suddenly wrap up instantaneously. I'm still going to go at the pace that I'm going at because I believe it's a good pace. My players keep talking about the game afterwards. They keep enjoying it and they keep complaining when it comes to an end. So I have to assume that I'm on the right path. I'm enjoying it as well, seeing where it's going to go. But at the back of my mind, the next time I run a game, I'm going to be thinking, hey, we need to close the loop here. The players need to get some information from somewhere, wherever they end up, that's going to set them on the path of running away from the bad guys and not really knowing what's going on, to knowing what's going on and now having to start plotting their own path. Because once the players are in charge of their destiny, we're effectively in the body of the adventure, that's when things get even more interesting. Because now I, as the GM, my NPCs are now on the back foot. We are now reacting to what the players are doing, and we're trying to get ahead of the players. So that's where it becomes, I think, a lot more entertaining as the GM than currently, where I'm kind of juggling, going, oh yeah, this is cool, I'm enjoying this is different, I didn't see it going there, but I really want it to come together. So anyway, that's where we are currently in the game. If you haven't yet started watching Duskmourn, give it a try. They're only an hour long, so they're very digestible from that perspective, and you're now caught up. They're about to arrive in the Dwarvish town of Erechbar, where we'll see what happens. Until next time, massive thank you to you for watching the show. Hit that like button if you enjoy this kind of content, if you want to see more. And if you have questions about the show, please ask me in today's video. Hey, why did you do this? What about this? What did that happen? Da, 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 da. And if you want to hear the players' perspectives, the insight from the players, I've spoken to them and they'd be willing to share with you what they feel so far about this insane ride. And where they're going to go and what they're going to try and do. Again, put it in the comments down below. We don't know unless you tell us. Until next time, thanks for watching. Happy gaming.